for those who know Chekhov, there's, you know, that his beautiful, painful, and true statement that in the tiniest of moments, something, I think I'm going to paraphrase, somebody overhears something said at dinner, and their lives are destroyed. And that sense of that really, the being so open, and what that requires, I think, of a creative response to it, that is to say, a production, is being open to the need and the desire to be loved and to love and to be understood and to be accepted, and is so profound and so vulnerable that it is so deeply fragile at the same time.
We learned is this play is not passive. It's extremely active. It's very, the language itself is very passionate, and it really served the kind of passion of the Russian soul and Russian culture, and the passion that each person,
The expressiveness.
The expressiveness and the huge emotional heights that everybody, and depths that everyone goes through in this play. And so people are very, very, very busy working out their problems. And I figure they're sleep deprived, they're not sleeping, they're drinking tea like crazy, and then when tea gets too much, they drink vodka to relax and be able to go to sleep, cool out.
So after 25 years, he's unmarried and has no children, which I think for some you automatically tether people, but I'm sure that parents and everybody go through those horrible 3 o'clock in the morning things at middle age where you go, what have I done?
Well, all of them, actually all the men in the play are facing that. What have I done? And some of the women.
No, it's a very interesting part for me because she spends a lot of time on stage reading. I'm a very physical actress, and I also like to talk, and so then for me to sit there and read, and I still have to be. You want to see me do it? No. I still have to take in everything that's going on. Or do I? Do I shut it out? How do I show whether I'm taking it in or whether I'm shutting it out? And then, you know, when I do, I just have a few times when I actually speak, and then, you know, where does that, then it kind of comes out in this burst as though I've been, you know, holding it inside, and then it comes out, and then I go back.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Joan. I'm fascinated by this idea of putting an actor on stage, and one of the main things you do is read. This may be a naive observation, but I fantasize if I were doing that, then one of the choices would be to sit there and have an actual book in front of me and start reading it. But it seems to me, obviously, there'd be the risk that you would actually get so caught up in the book. And it seems like the only safe thing to be looking at would be copying the scripts. How do you do that?
That's a great idea.
So Laura and I were actually talking about that the other day. What I've been reading in rehearsal is this essay about the emancipation of women in Russia, about the women's movement, and it is so frigging dense that I cannot understand a word of it, and I think that that's good because I can't get lost in it. I cannot understand it. And then the other idea that we had was, I mean, there are keywords, and those will keep me probably awake, about emancipation and stuff like that. And then George Sand was a very influential writer in Russia at that time, in terms of the feminist movement, however it took shape. And so that was another thing that I was thinking, is that I could be reading a George Sand novel, but then yes, then there's the problem. Will I miss my cue? Yeah, so I probably just will take a Muni schedule.
What are you doing to get through the play? that allows it not to be a passive experience, a maudlin experience, an experience that I think many of us, or at least I have, had in experiencing American Chekhov, which is sort of playing the kind of, the sort of mordant state of, oh, my life is so terrible, which is, you know, really, who wants to spend time with that even in your own life? So what is it that drives this play forward that allows for the humor, of which there is enormous, I mean, Vanya's most desperate act, which is a pretty violent act, is a pretty hilarious act at the same time, I think. He goes a-shooting through the house. I mean, he just goes shooting. Why? Who's he shooting? We don't know. What's the big plan there?
And Vanya's probably pretty good with guns, too. He's lived on a farm for 25 years, so I'm sure he knows how to handle guns.
Yeah, it makes you wonder whether that wasn't his intention. Because
just he can't. It's a human. He can't. You know, you can't follow through. Nothing. Oh, damn it!
My favorite part of that scene is when he shoots and he misses, and then he says, "Bang!"
Come on! Hey! Your cue! Oh, I missed! He's right there!
The big kind of moment for the play was when it was produced by the Moscow Art Theater in 1899. And it had been done successfully in the province, had been playing in the provinces before that. But it's much like, you know, in our American theater, when we used to try stuff out in like Cincinnati or wherever, and then nothing really counted until you got to New York. It was sort of like that. And he was fortunate because this one was successful at the beginning, which some of his other plays were not. When the Seagull first premiered in St. Petersburg, people lined up to hate that show, both critics and audiences. And the audience was catcalling and saying this is awful, and they were making fun of him, and the critics just savaged him. And I read one of his biographies that he went home and curled up in a fetal position in his bed. He left in the middle of opening night and was in a fetal. And his friend came to find him, and he said, "Don't turn the lights on and call me an ass if I ever write for the theater again." And of course, then he thought his plays were funny. But they succeeded best under the direction of Stanislavski at the Moscow Art Theater, who didn't think they were funny. And he used to complain that Stanislavski had turned his plays into crybabies, he said. You know, he got very upset when people would say, "Oh, I cried at your play, I was so moved." And he went, you know, he walked out of the read-through of The Three Sisters because they were all crying at the end of it. And all the actors were saying, "Oh, I was so moved, it's so beautiful, it's so heartbreaking," and he got angry and left. Because he thought he'd written a comedy.
I actually think that Chekhov had an uncanny ability to capture what it is to be a human being and to be alive at any point in time. That's why you can set him in the Hamptons now, or you can do, you know, a 1898 in Russia. He was the ultimate humanist. I don't know of another writer who could capture moment for moment what it is to live and what we all face in life. The humor as well as the pathos and the pain and the joy and the disappointment and the rage and the love.
And I think no one writes people's inability to articulate what's in their hearts and on their minds better than him. Do you know, Shakespeare wrote everybody capable of articulating their worldview. Shaw did too.
Yeah.
Chekhov writes things where it's like, bang! Or, and they run off.
Yeah.
I mean, he writes that because he knows that that's, in that moment, that person cannot express. And so when they do express, and they go on, when Astrov gives his speech about planting, that is a passionate, he is ready, he has been waiting to say this, and he has it all inside of him. So the expression, so his ability to write what being a human is, isn't writing about life. He writes life.